Chapter 12. The Magic Mirror. The next day, Gaston woke in his chamber to a knock on the door. It was Francis, holding a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Gaston was still exhausted from the night before, barely opening his eyes when Francis came into the room. Gaston did his best to shake off his grogginess and tried a tired hello. "What's this, Francis? Who is this from?" he asked, turning it over to see if there was a note. "It doesn't say, sir. It was dropped off this morning, and the messenger said it was to be given to you." Francis looked like he was bursting to talk about how ludicrously Circe's sisters had been acting the night before. But they were the last people Gaston wanted to talk about then. "How strange. I bet it's from the prince," said Gaston. "Thank you, Francis." He reached to throw off his coverlet, almost forgetting he wasn't dressed. "Would you like breakfast in your room this morning, or will you be joining the others in the dining room? I understand you are rather fond of eggs. Shall I bring you some to go along with your coffee, sir?" asked Francis. "I thought I'd had breakfast with the staff downstairs before I headed back to my estate." Gaston had had his fill of fancy dining rooms, pretending he was a gentleman, and most of all, Circe and her sisters. "The prince thought it might be your plan, and said if it was so, to let you know he would be happy to join you for breakfast downstairs before your ride after breakfast," Francis said. "Ride? What ride? Never mind. Thank you, Francis. Shall I draw you a bath before I go, sir?" "Good gravy, Francis. No, I can draw my own bath, thank you." He wasn't trying to be rude to Francis. He just wasn't used to being waited upon by people he considered his friends. Gaston wasn't used to being waited upon by anyone, for that matter, and he was surprised. Kingsley wanted to see him. What was this ride they were going on later this afternoon? He wasn't aware they had plans to go riding. Gaston felt ignored by Kingsley the night before, and it had been a nightmare being stuck with Circe's sisters, having to endure not only them, but Circe's duplicity. Maybe Kingsley was just as disappointed they'd had no time together the previous evening and was making up for it. Gaston supposed he would find out, but that was no reason to take it out on poor Francis, who had been nothing but kind and supportive throughout his entire charade. "I'm sorry, Francis. I'm not myself yet. I never am before my coffee, and last night was a doozy. I fear I haven't quite recovered. Can you ever forgive me?" "There's nothing to forgive. Your coffee is on the desk, sir." "You're my hero, Francis. Thank you. If there's nothing else, I will go to the kitchen and tell Chef Bouge to make plenty of eggs for your breakfast. 5 dozen, is it?" "Yes, Francis. Thank you," he said, longing for his coffee, which he went straight for the moment Francis left the room. Gaston was happy Kingsley was going to join him downstairs for breakfast. Hopefully he wasn't planning to bring Circe. The last thing Gaston wanted was to sit down to another meal with Circe and the prince, seeing her fawn all over him, pretending like she wasn't trying to end their friendship. But then again, it was probably beneath her to have breakfast downstairs. Well, at least Kingsley's new lofty ways weren't keeping him from having a meal with his old friends. There hadn't been one moment the previous night when he was able to speak with the prince alone. So he was looking forward to this ride later, and hoping he would be able to talk Kingsley into going out for a drink at the tavern afterward. He had to think carefully about how he was going to handle things with the prince. It was a delicate matter, telling someone they picked the wrong person to marry, and he wasn't quite sure what to say. He could just be honest and tell him what Circe had said in the rose garden. But what if Kingsley believed her vision nonsense? The Kingsley he knew didn't believe in ghosts, magic, spells, or curses. But Gaston had no idea what Kingsley believed in now. For all Gaston knew, Circe had him believing in all sorts of things. No, he had to calculate exactly what to say. As he drank his coffee, trying to figure out the best way to handle things, he remembered the package. It was sitting on the table near the double doors leading out to the terrace. He opened it, surprised to find it was a hand mirror. What a strange gift. What was Kingsley thinking, he said, looking at his reflection. It was hard to look at himself. He looked so much like his father now that he was older. These days he did his best to avoid mirrors altogether. "The gift is from us, Gaston," said a voice from the mirror. Gaston dropped the mirror in shock, causing it to crack. He could see one of Circe's sisters in the mirror looking at him with an insipid smile. "Others have tried to break our mirrors, Gaston. They've even tried burying them in dark forests or giving them away, but they always return good as new," said the witch from the mirror, who he was sure was Lucinda. "What witchery is this? What devilry? What do you want?" Gaston flung the mirror on the bed as the woman laughed at him. "We want you to bring your friend to our house in 3 days' time," she said with an evil grin. "There he will find Circe in rags, caring for the pigs." "I see. And how are you going to get Circe to do this? I presume you're not a pig-farming family. Why would she agree to this farce?" he asked, then recoiled in shock as he picked up the mirror again and saw it was no longer cracked. He knew these women were witches, but he hadn't really taken them very seriously with all of their cake munching and making fools of themselves at the ball. He wasn't sure what to make of this. How powerful were these witches? "More powerful than you will ever know, Gaston, and you would do well not to cross us. So please, let us help you, and in doing so, you will help us." Lucinda looked more serious than Gaston had seen her yet. She wasn't the fool he thought she was. "We will tell Circe if the prince truly loves her, then it won't matter if he finds her mucking it with the pigs. And since she wants nothing more than to prove us wrong, she will agree," said the wicked woman, as another one of Circe's strange sisters appeared in the mirror to chime in. "We think if you do this for us, we will get all our wish, and your friend won't want to marry our sister." "I have a feeling you intended for me to hear you in the rose garden," said Gaston, smiling at the three witches. "You're smarter than we thought, Gaston," said one of the women. "Yes, very interesting," said the other. "Not sure if that will do," said the third, right before the mirror went back to his own reflection. "Vile women," he said, turning the mirror over. He hated having to deal with these witches, and he was sure he couldn't trust them. But what choice would he have if Kingsley didn't see sense? After changing, Gaston went around the back to the courtyard that led to the servants' hall entrance, and just as he hoped, the prince was standing there waiting for him. This was the first time he'd seen the prince alone, without being surrounded by a room full of people. It was a bright sunny morning, and the sky was blue with fat white clouds that looked like someone had painted in the sky just for them. When Gaston saw his friend standing there, his heart began to race. He didn't expect to feel so nervous to be with him alone, even though that's exactly what he had been hoping for since he first saw him the night before. "My friend, my dear friend, I am so happy to see you," said Gaston, wrapping his arms around the prince. Kingsley looked even more handsome than he had the night before, although maybe a little worse for wear, having been up all night and not shaving yet that morning. "Gaston, look at you. I barely recognized you last night. You are much changed. Mrs. Potts warned me, but I couldn't picture it, not until I saw you. You look so much like your father. It's no wonder Francis and almost everyone else in the kingdom has a crush on you." He returned Gaston's hug. "I see you're already dressed for riding. Perfect. I told them we will be out all day, just you and I. We have so much to catch up on." This was the Kingsley Gaston was hoping to see. His heart felt lighter. "Indeed we do. There's so much I want to talk with you about," he said, stopping himself for now. He decided it was better to talk once they were away from the castle. "Circe tells me there's something important you wanted to tell me. I hope it's nothing too serious," said the prince with a smile. "I hope you like her, Gaston. I know she likes you." "Does she? That's interesting." Gaston was unable to hide his surprise and disdain. "What is it?" "Don't be jealous, Gaston, please. If you had come along with me like I wanted, you could have helped me choose the perfect girl. But you decided to stay home. Now we both have to live with my choice." "But she is beautiful, isn't she? The most beautiful woman I have ever seen." What else do you like about her? Asked Gaston, sincerely wanting to know. What else is there? She would look good on the throne and give me beautiful airs. Gaston winced. He had felt guilty, plotting to ruin his friend's chance at a happy life, but it seems this was no love match after all. So this is my punishment? You're going to marry the daughter of a pig farmer just to spite me? Gaston didn't mean to blurt it out just like that. What was he thinking? What are you talking about? She's related to the old king. The prince wasn't taking him seriously. Gaston knew his friend. He saw it on his face. There was no way he would ever believe the woman he loved could be a keeper of pigs. Convincing him of this was going to be hard. He should have waited until he could take Kingsley to see Cersei with the pigs for himself. I wonder. I heard she and her vile sisters won't say who their parents are. Are you sure she's related to the king? Cersei and her sisters don't live far from here, untold. I bet if we paid them a surprise visit, we would find her tending the pigs. That's poppycock, and you know it. Come on, Gaston, you're just jealous I am marrying the most beautiful woman in the land. You want her for yourself. While it was true he was jealous, he didn't want Cersei for himself. He wanted her and her wicked sisters as far from their kingdom as possible. What would life be like for his friend under the rule of such witches? That's not true, Kingsley. I still feel the same way I did the day before you left for your tour. Remember what we said to each other? Remember our wish? You know that dream is impossible, Gaston. You know I have to get married. The prince looked deeply disappointed. It didn't even occur to Gaston that he might be as disappointed as he was. Or maybe he was simply upset Gaston wasn't just falling into line and putting on a good face. I know you have to get married, Kingsley, but it doesn't have to be her. She's a liar. She and her sisters are witches. I promise you, she is not what she seems. Gaston stood there for a moment after he said those words, waiting for his friend to reply, but the prince just looked at him in silence. Gaston wasn't sure if he was taking it all in or if he was going to throw fisticuffs. You're honestly telling me Cersei and her sisters are pig-farming witches? I am. Who knows? Maybe Cersei takes after her namesake, and the pigs are ex-lovers, or enemies. I haven't the slightest idea how the minds of witches work. Well, we shall see. Kingsley began walking away. Where are you going? Gaston called out. To confront Cersei. Later that day, Francis gave Gaston a message from Kingsley saying he still expected to see Gaston that afternoon, and he was to meet him at the tavern in the village before they went riding. He had no idea how the talk had gone with Cersei. It was typical Kingsley, cryptic and bewildering. What Gaston was sure of was that no matter how it went, Kingsley would want to go on as though nothing happened. That was his way. When Kingsley arrived at the tavern, he was greeted with great cheers by old Mr. Higgins and the usual regulars. Kingsley wasn't there yet, so he ordered a drink for himself and had a chat with Mr. Higgins. It had been some nights since he ducked in to say hello to the old crew, and he was happy to be back. What's this I hear, Gaston? Too good for us now? Attending balls at the castle? Said Mr. Higgins. It was my best friend's engagement party. I could hardly duck out of that, no matter how much I wanted to, said Gaston, laughing heartily. And here we thought you had forsaken us now that the prince has returned, said Mr. Higgins. But Gaston did wonder if there were others in the village who thought he had given up on his friendships with all of them now that Kingsley the prince had returned, or worse yet, given up on his promise to hunt the beast. Of course I haven't forsaken you, you old fool. A promise is a promise. Besides, who else in all the land can kill the beast of Jean Vedon? Good man, said the baker, raising his beer with such enthusiasm it splashed all over the floorboards. We knew you wouldn't let that fancy lot go to your head, said Mr. Higgins. To Gaston, the hero of our village, the only man in this kingdom brave enough to hunt down the beast and mount its ugly head on my wall, said Higgins. Everyone in the tavern cheered. To Gaston! Gaston threw his head back and laughed as the other patrons all gathered around him, offering to buy him another drink. But he wouldn't hear of it. Tonight, he was going to treat them. He owed it to them. It was they, after all, who kept his spirits up when Kingsley was away, and it was they who showed him his true quality. These fine men truly admired and respected him, and saw his worth. And he was happy to be in their company again. Drinks are on me, Higgins, in celebration of the prince's engagement. Gaston felt happy and like himself again. To the prince, he said, raising his glass, but no one joined him. Sod the prince! Higgins filled glass after glass, sliding them down the bar to everyone gathered around Gaston. To Gaston, our hero return! Higgins said as everyone raised their tankards and slammed them together as hard they spilled ale all over the floor. Gaston was in his element. It was such a change from the night before. He was in a place where he felt like he belonged. He wasn't putting on airs, or wondering what to say or how to act, or having to dodge Cersei's sisters. The only triplets he cared to see ever again were the blonde beauties, Claudette, Laurette, and Paulette, the barmaids who helped Mr. Higgins out when the tavern was busy. Where are your lovely barmaids this evening? He was surprised not to see them, with the tavern so packed at this early hour. They haven't been in the past few days. I thought perhaps you had eloped with Claudette, and the other two were home crying. Those women adore you, Gaston. When are you going to settle down like your friend and get married? There isn't a woman alive who wouldn't want to marry you, said Higgins, laughing. That Claudette and her sisters are the most beautiful girls in the village. Besides Belle, the baker chimed in. You could easily have your pick, Gaston. There isn't a man alive more deserving than you. You're the strongest, most handsome, bravest man in the village, just like your father was before you. You're the best, and you deserve the best. You only need to say the word, and you'd have the prettiest girl anyone has ever seen, said Higgins. Not prettier than my Cersei, said the prince, having walked into the tavern without notice. Gaston knew that look on Kingsley's face. He wasn't happy, and it seemed he was still going to marry that damnable witch. Gaston slammed a bunch of coins on the bar, demanding another round of drinks. Drinks are on me, gentlemen. To the prince and his beautiful bride-to-be, he said, raising his glass and giving everyone in the tavern a look to say they'd better follow suit. Or else. Thank you, gentlemen, thank you. Kingsley barely cracked a smile. Gaston knew he was in for it. She is the most beautiful woman in the village. I'd be jealous if we weren't the best of friends, said Gaston. He was putting on a show for the other men, hoping to soften Kingsley's edges. You're lucky to have such a loyal friend in Gaston, said one of the men, downing his drink and wiping his face with the back of his hand. Gaston is the best hunter in the land. There's not one trophy on this wall that wasn't brought in by Gaston, said Higgins. Well, I've been away for quite some time. Perhaps that will soon change. The prince gave Gaston a look Gaston didn't like. Perhaps Gaston was wrong in his impression when he saw him in the courtyard. This wasn't the Kingsley he remembered after all. Right you are, your highness. We'll have to make some room, said Higgins, laughing good-naturedly. But Gaston could tell old man Higgins doubted the prince would be bringing in any hunting trophies, let alone enough to rival Gaston. It was well known Gaston had been besting the prince since they were boys, but it seemed that no one would do for the prince. But it seemed that no longer would do for the prince. Something had changed. If you don't mind, gentlemen, I'm going to steal away my friend here. You can fawn over him later. Come on, friend, he said curtly, leading Gaston to a table near the fireplace where they could sit alone. They took 2 chairs that faced each other, and the prince scooted his closer to Gaston so they could talk without being heard. I've talked to Cersei. She denies your accusations. We are, of course, going on with our plans to get married, Gaston, and you will stand by my side. You will be my best man. Kingsley was talking through gritted teeth and keeping his voice low while eyeing the men at the bar who are looking in their direction. And how's that going to work exactly? Do you think Cersei will allow that, with how she feels about me? Allow it? Who is the future king here, Gaston? Besides, I didn't tell her what you said. She didn't know. One day we will laugh about this. I want to laugh about it now. It's all silly nonsense. It was just like Kingsley to make up his own version of reality, pretending everything normal when it's not. Exactly what he did after Gaston's father was killed. This was all too familiar and too painful. It's not nonsense. Oh, stop it, Gaston. Do you realize I actually believed you? You should have seen her crumbling into tears when I told her we had to call off the wedding, that I couldn't possibly marry someone so low. But honestly, Gaston, just look at her. How could she possibly be the daughter of a pig farmer, let alone a witch? It's laughable. I'm the son of a groundskeeper, and I'm pretty handsome, he said boastfully, and rather more loudly than he intended, making everyone in the tavern laugh, but annoyingly Kingsley even more. Speaking of which, from this point forward, we will say the kills on these walls are mine. Do you understand? Mine. I can't have you being the hero of this village, Gaston. It won't do. Gaston shouldn't have been surprised the prince was acting this way. His father had warned him this might happen. In fact, told him it would happen. But he hadn't believed it. All their lives, Kingsley didn't mind if Gaston was better at almost everything. It never mattered. But now, for some reason, it did. All of a sudden, now that he was getting married and closer to becoming the king, he magically had to be the best at everything. Isn't it enough you're the Prince, Kingsley? Why? Are you jealous of that too? Kingsley, come on. Every man here knows all these kills are mine. If you say something enough times, people will start to believe you. I do it all the time. What do you mean you do it all the time? I have never known you to do that, Kingsley. Haven't you? How many times did I say you're my brother and my equal, until finally everyone treated you like my brother and equal? I don't feel like that we're equals now. I don't blame you for being jealous of all my achievements, Gaston. Just look at these walls. The prince laughed as he motioned to the walls covered in trophies. What's wrong with you? Are you delusional? Everyone knows these are my kills, and I am the best hunter. Not anymore. Look, I know you're jealous, and why shouldn't you be? I am marrying Cersei. You were overtaken by her beauty, and it got the best of you, my friend. You wanted her for yourself, and that's why you made up that silly pig story. But who would want to marry the king of Butchenland, the king of nothing, when she could marry me? Kingsley's words knocked the wind out of him. It was a low blow, even for him, but Gaston didn't let it show. I suppose you're right. Didn't you say we were riding together today? Come on, let's ride. Gaston stood up and walked toward the door. He was angry and hurt, but he wasn't going to give Kingsley the satisfaction of letting him know. He was going to show him who was best, even if it meant knocking some sense into him. Maybe then he'd have his old Kingsley back. All right, fellas, the prince and I are about to see who's the better rider, and he bets he beats me? I wouldn't take that bet. Not in a million years, Gaston, said Higgins. Everyone in the tavern laughed as Gaston swung the doors open with a Lumiere-like flourish, letting the prince walk out of the tavern first. Did you hear that, your highness? Not in a million years, Gaston was laughing, but both he and the prince were seething as they stood outside the tavern. Don't ever treat me like a fool in front of those men, or anyone else again. Do you understand me? Never. You may be my best friend, but that's where it ends. I am the best at everything else. No matter how many times you say it, that won't make it true, said Gaston, as he mounted Noir and took up his reins. Let's see who is best, the prince said as he mounted his horse, and they both took off like a flash. Gaston rode fast through the woods, looking back to see if his friend was following. He was a few yards behind him. Kingsley's face was filled with anger as they both rode hard. Gaston easily jumping hedges and splashing through creeks as Kingsley the prince struggled behind him. Gaston had always been a better rider than Kingsley, and he knew it. Gaston steered his horse, weaving through the trees and laughing the entire way. He was better than the prince at everything. He always had been, and at the moment, he was enjoying it much more than he should. Then something happened he did not expect. The sky was darkening. At first, Gaston thought a storm was coming, and he looked up, expecting to see large storm clouds looming, but it was something else. An eclipse. It was an eerie sensation, suddenly being enveloped in darkness. Gaston pulled on Noir's reins, coming to a quick stop. Realizing where they were right at the cemetery gates where his father was killed. He hadn't been there since his father was put to rest there with his mother. Gaston stood there at the gate, looking at the statue of his mother beckoning him. Guilt washed over him as he looked at her marble visage, longing to know her, to talk with his father again, wanting to tell his father he was right about the prince, wondering how it was he knew. He had so many things he wanted to say to his father, so many questions he would never be able to ask, and he wondered how it was he found himself there, looking at his friend's angry and bewildered face once he finally caught up to him. "What's going on? Why are we here? Did you plan this?" the prince demanded, dismounting his horse and getting in Gaston's face. "How could I? I'm not a conjurer." Gaston wondered if there was some sort of magic at work, remembering he had packed the hand mirror in his bag. He wasn't sure why, but now he wondered if it was a mistake. "I'm not talking about the eclipse, you fool. I'm talking about this place. Why did you bring me here?" Kingsley looked around, peering into the darkness. "What are you playing at, Gaston? Why are we here?" "I didn't bring you here, Kingsley, and if you call me a fool one more time, we will both see who is better at brawling." "Is that a threat? Are you threatening your prince?" "Oh, shut up, Kingsley. What's wrong with you?" "Cersei told me you hold your father's death against me. She said one day one of us will die as a result. After everything I have done for you, Gaston, you still won't forgive me? I still can't trust you?" "It's not true, Kingsley. I don't blame you. I haven't for a long time. She's lying." So this was what this was all about. She told him, and now he was hurt. No wonder he was acting this way. Why would she lie, Gaston? Why would she make up something like that? And how would she know about the beast and your father if she didn't have some kind of ability to see things? "I thought you didn't believe in witches, Kingsley." "I don't know what to believe, except she knows things, Gaston." "I don't think that makes her a witch." "Everyone knows my father was killed by the beast. It is a very well-known story in these lands. They know we were there when it happened, and I didn't make it a secret. I was upset when you back then. Didn't I? We were kids, Kingsley. We were both foolish. It wasn't either of our faults." "Is that how you really feel, Gaston? Then what is this about? Is it jealousy? I promise you nothing has to change between us." "Things have already changed. You've changed. You come home insisting you're the best at everything, calling me a fool at every opportunity, and you're marrying a woman who is trying to send me away. You can't marry her, Kingsley. She and her sisters are dangerous. You've seen her sisters. How long will it be until Cersei starts showing her true nature? Do you want to live your life in a den of witches? She's making things up, telling lies about me. You've never let anyone break up our friendship, no matter how hard they tried. Don't let Cersei do this to us." "Why would she make this up? Why would she do it?" "She told me why. She knows you love me more than you love her." "She said that?" Gaston could see Kingsley was surprised. "She did. She's trying to get rid of me, Kingsley. She knows I know the truth about her family." He felt guilty, but the fact was her family was dangerous. The truth was more insidious than a story about her being some kind of pig farmer's daughter. This was lunacy, that his friend would be more affronted by her caring for pigs than being in a coven of witches. She really said that? That I love you more than I love her? Then she can see into our hearts, said the prince, looking off. And that means I can't trust either of you. But before Gaston could defend himself, He heard something in the darkness. A crunching noise, twigs being broken under feet. The sound was coming closer and closer, and then he saw them. 4 pairs of eyes glowing in the darkness. What's that? Is it the beast? The prince was panicking, spinning every inch way, trying to see where the danger was coming from. Shh! No, I think it's wolves. Gaston slowly took his blunderbuss from his saddlebag. Stand behind me, between the horses. Go, now, Gaston said through gritted teeth, pointing the weapon at the advancing wolves. They were in a semicircle, moving closer and closer. Gaston took a handful of lead balls from his inside pocket and loaded them into his gun. He aimed his blunderbuss and took his shot, hitting all 4 of the wolves in the spray. As he turned to tell the prince they were safe, he saw another wolf coming out of the mist. It was sinister and large, snarling at him. Without even thinking, Gaston took the blunderbuss and grabbed his hatchet from his belt as the wolf jumped at him, knocking him to the ground with a tremendous force. The wolf snapped its jaw at him over and over, trying to bite his face as Gaston held it off by holding the wooden handle of the axe on each end and pressing it against the wolf's throat. It took all his strength to keep the wolf from biting him, and there were moments when Gaston worried he wouldn't be able to hold it off for much longer. Its snarling teeth bared and snapped over and over, its face so close to his he could smell his foul breath. He pushed the creature with all his might, trying to get him out from under it, hoping to get some advantage so he could use the axe to kill it. But the wolf was too strong and too large. When he was finally able to see the creature clearly and looked it in the eyes, he knew what it was. This was no ordinary wolf. It was the beast of Gévaudan. He struggled beneath its tremendous weight, flailing, using everything within him to overtake the beast. But without warning, he heard his blunderbuss go off, and he and the creature were pelted with rocks. Blood exploded as the rocks punctured them. The beast looked up from Gaston, who was lying in the dirt, covered in blood from the numerous shots, and without warning pounced on the prince. The 2 went tumbling into one of the horses. Gaston struggled to get back on his feet as he watched the horse rear up and smash its hooves into the creature, nearly missing the prince. Kingsley rolled out of the way and tried to find anything he could to reload into the blunderbuss while the beast was stunned. He scrambled backward as fast as he could until he reached the trunk of a tree, where he sat in terror, watching the horrid creature take heavy steps towards him. The blood poured into Kingsley's eyes as he closed them tightly against the encroaching beast. He couldn't see Gaston standing there, now with his loaded bow pointed right at the beast's head. Without even realizing he had actually taken the shot, Gaston saw the beast slump over the prince. At last, it was dead. Gaston pulled his friend out from under the creature, slapping his face and shaking him. Kingsley! Kingsley! Wake up! Please don't be dead. Don't be such a ninny. Of course I'm not dead. They both laughed as they embraced tightly, until Kingsley stepped back and took Gaston by the shoulders. You saved my life, Gaston. I know now I could trust you. I'm sorry I faltered. We saved each other, Kingsley. We avenged my parents together, as I knew we would. The beast was dead. The weight of avenging his parents was no longer suffocating him, no longer consuming his every thought. This was what he had wished for, to destroy the beast together with his friend, putting everything that happened when they were boys behind them. Gaston had his friend back. They had a chance to start over, to have the life they always wanted. If only Circe wasn't standing in his way. Both of your parents? What do you mean? I'll tell you later, my brother. I promise. But let's agree we can trust each other, and we owe each other our lives. No matter what happens, we will always be brothers, and you won't let Circe send me away, said Gaston. 3 days later, Gaston took the prince to see Circe at the house she shared with her odd sisters, with its witch-capped roof and round windows. Gaston wasn't sure if Kingsley finally believed his darling Cersei could truly be a pig farmer's daughter, or if he just wanted to prove to Gaston the rumors were untrue. Whatever his reasons, Gaston was happy to agree to make the trip. It was a strange sort of place, odd and foreboding, with its stained glass windows depicting fairy tale images of beasts, a dragon breathing green fire, a sinister looking apple, and other strange images that seemed to hold special meaning to the witches. There was even a cat who looked eerily like his own cat sitting in the garden near a lone apple tree, a tree that didn't look like it belonged there. Gaston wouldn't have been able to explain why it didn't look like it should be there if he could, but it just looked wrong, somehow out of place. In the front of the house was a garden, and off to the side was a pen for the pigs. That was where they saw Cersei, just as the Odd Sisters had said she would be. The bottom of her simple white dress was caked with mud. Her hair looked dull, and her cheeks were flushed with hard work. She must have sensed them looking at her while she fed the pigs. Gaston could see how saddened he was by the look of disgust on the prince's face. She looked stricken with horror and shame. Gaston stayed with the horses and let the prince approach her. He couldn't bring himself to stand at his friend's side while he defamed and debased her and accused her of lying. Gaston saw Cersei's heart break in that moment. The love of her life was ending the relationship because he thought she was lovely, that she was beneath him. And now her beauty was somehow tarnished in his eyes, all because Gaston and Cersei's sisters tricked the prince into believing she was the daughter of a pig farmer. Gaston's heart began to race, and he felt the heat rise in his face, realizing in that moment his friend Kingsley was truly horrible, and that he himself was no better. They were bound to each other now, even more than before. Gaston had lied and let Kingsley shame and break Cersei's heart. This was who he was now, who his friend was, and he hated that this was who Kingsley had been for longer than Gaston would like to admit. Their lives would never be the same. He felt it in his core as Cersei's sisters looked at him through the windows of their strange house, smiling at him, their grins wide and wicked while they danced and sang with joy because they had gotten their wish. It made Gaston sick to see Cersei fall to her knees and cry while the prince walked away as if she were a trifling piece of trash. Gaston had seen his friend treat people horribly in the past, but nothing quite like this. It was disturbing and hard to watch, but even more disturbing was the part he had played in all this, and the smiles on Cersei's Odd Sisters' faces as they peered at them through the windows, smiles he feared that would haunt his waking and dreaming mind for years to come, and he wondered if this would be the last time he would see these witches. He had a feeling it was not.